passe super, l'artiste, super, encore un but sensationnel. That's a brilliant bit of follow-up play by Mahe. Oh my goodness me, what a shot.
Sagosen setter det hen! Han setter den! Vi i semifinale igjen!
Hello everyone and welcome to the Uninformed Handball Hour. Just one day after releasing our EHF Final Four podcast, recapping the weekend. We're back, but it's not the usual lineup. It's me, Chris O'Reilly, but we've decided to give Alex Kulesh and Brian Campion a little break. I'm not sure they could handle a bit of beach handball talk right now, but I tell you who can deal with a bit of beach handball talk and a lot more of that. It's Marcio Menino. Marcio, how are you?
Hey, Chris. All good. I'm still recovering, but I'm fine. I'm ready for this beach season to start.
Well, you've already had a bit of the beach season because you were in Sicily a couple of weeks ago.
Indeed, and unfortunately, you were only able to be my company in the remotely, but at least you managed to be there in spirit with us.
Yeah, and at least I was joined online by Labrine at Sakalau for that. So that it's not all bad. And the reason we're on here today is because it's actually the first day of the Beach Handball World Championship over in Crete in Greece. And yeah, I think we've both had a little look at some of the action today. We're coming in now right after the host nation Greece beating the USA in the men's competition. I think we can maybe talk a little bit about the women's one first, though, and then we have an interview coming up later on because last month I had the fortune of being in LA and I got to visit the boys from the USA beach handball team, which actually you did earlier as well this year. So we both at different times visited them. I had a little training session with them and then had a chat with three of the players, Ebiye Udo-Udoma, who's been on the podcast before, Brian Cook, who's part of the USA team right now as well in Greece, and Chattopadhyay, which I'm not sure if I got that perfectly right in terms of pronunciation. Yeah, and that's referenced as well in the chat, who has been a part of the USA team as well, kind of a up and coming player for that team. But yeah, first let's talk about maybe the women's side and your first impressions on the first day, Marcio.
First day, I don't think there was surprises anywhere. The European teams going strong against the rest of the world, so to say. I think that was only one surprise, and was in the morning with Germany beating 2-0 Brazil. Like, you could say Germany wins, okay, but never a 2-0, and especially never a 2-0 with 12 points apart.
And that second set, right? Because they beat them, 16-4, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. Like, this is unseen in terms of beach handball. Like, okay, you can lose by 10 or 12, but usually it's like 30-something against 20, not a 16-4 set. You know, it was it's kind of like a massacre. And I think mentally Brazil broke there. And it's not good for Brazil, although this is still the beginning. Yeah. Germany looks like the powerhouse. And later on, they won 2-0 against Hungary, which are always a team that supposedly goes to semifinals, quarterfinals and stuff like this. But Germany, really, what a statement from them. I know. And as you know, from the last Euro in Bulgaria, they're not old. They're not very experienced players. Well, you could say in beach handball, of course, but in terms of age, they're like under U23, some, like the majority of them. So not what you can expect. But good for them, good for Alex, good for the ladies.
Yeah, I mean, they showed last year winning the European Championship, Germany, that they can deal with the pressure, they can deal with these situations. And looking down at the squad here, it's practically the same team. I think 9 out of the 10 players played in the European Championship last year. And exactly. So, I mean, they have everything needed, I guess, to go all the way. And interestingly enough, you were saying about being in Italy a couple of weeks ago. Germany were one of the few teams that decided they weren't going to send any players to that tournament. They were going to have their own training camp instead and focus purely on preparation. And well, it proved so. I mean, so far it's day one, but that that group is Group D, and it's the group of death in the women's competition, right? Because we can go through the four groups super quickly just to give you an overview of the teams that are here. So Group A, we're going to talk about Portugal, the hosts Greece, Thailand, and Mexico. Then Group B, you have Spain, Denmark, USA, Vietnam. Group C, Netherlands, Argentina, Uruguay, and Australia. Then Group D, the group of death, Germany, Norway. There you have two recent Euro champions, Brazil, the record women's champions, and Hungary, who were in the semi-finals of the Euro last year. So I mean, that's already, one big team getting eliminated at a very early stage.
Yeah, that's the thing, and the thing for these teams is not only the World Championship, is the qualifying also for ANOC, the World Games, the World Beach Handball, Beach Sport Games. So it's kind of like a double purpose, a double objective to get here at least a fifth place, to get a spot in the ANOC. But yeah, it's like you said, it's that Group D. It's kind of messy, with the Norway winning 2-1 against Hungary and Brazil winning 2-1 against Norway today. And Hungary looks like the team that will leave earlier. They need a good result against Brazil, like a 2-0, just to manage the enough parts for the triple,
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, in this case, if we think about, Norway could get a result against Germany, and then it would just be a head-to-head between Brazil and Hungary, right? But either way, you go tomorrow, Wednesday afternoon, Brazil and Hungary in a really early battle for survival. And that's, if you're looking for games tomorrow afternoon, that is at 15:40 Central European time. And that's definitely one to tune in for. That's for sure. But tell me a little bit about Portugal. I believe men and women making their debut overall, right, at the world level. And the women's team have had a very bright start.
Well, they didn't start as well as you think against Thailand. That first half was kind of like we say sofrível in Portuguese, where we're suffering a lot. Okay. Not because of Thailand was overcoming us, but really because we were like not playing anything. Like they were not awake, and I spoke with a few players that were like, that first half was something that nobody should see, and they were like, yeah, true. But we managed to win the second half and win in shootout, so that was good. And especially after against Mexico, we did no chance, 2-0. That's it, boom, boom. Because our second set against Thailand was 21-14, and in penalty shootout was 8-4. So yeah, that first one was a bit too much.
And so for Portugal, likely then to be facing Greece in a group final, or definitely facing Greece tomorrow, but what is likely to be a group final in Group A, which is pretty exciting. Also, when you look at the teams crossing over from Group B, you realize already that you need some points in the bag.
Definitely, you need some points. This is what we call a do or die, because if you don't get enough points now, then as soon as you get to the other group, it's going to be a really tough cross with Spain and Denmark, and it's which one to choose. we don't want to choose anyone. It's a really not a really good cross for us. But if we manage to get first place, at least we can expect something from the other side.
Well, that was something I was looking at, and it's quite, and also bearing in mind Greece in this compilation is a reigning champion. I mean, the last World Championship was 4 years ago, so it's been a long time waiting for a World Championship again in beach handball, as 2020 was cancelled. But Greece won it very surprisingly last time on their debut, and hosts here, so a lot of expectation for them. But really, you can even afford a loss early in this competition, unless you're in Group D, of course, where you could be knocked out. But my point is, like, three teams from every group goes through to the main round, and then from there 4 teams go through to the quarterfinals. So there's good opportunities there, and particularly in beach handball, all you have to do is put yourself in the mix. And as we saw, even teams like Thailand or Australia in Group C almost getting a set there against Argentina. All you need is one set, and then you have a chance to win the game.
Yeah. It's one of the things that I usually say to both Portuguese teams is that you are able to win at least one set to any team that you want. So you just go for it, because that's the thing. If you think that you're not going to win the first set, then definitely you're not going to win the second. You always have to think that the first set is yours, and then you try to keep the focus, and you try to keep that strength for the second one to go for the 2-0. But even if you don't get the 2-0, at least shootout it's definitely there, so we can manage it, because it's easier to work this way as a coach and as of course as players than work with fighting against that second half. And that happened again with Portugal in the men's against Qatar, but we'll get there. But eventually every team needs to win at least one set, and like you said, as soon as you go to the next round, you go for sets, you can manage to get like 3rd, 4th place in the group, and you still go to the quarterfinals. And in the quarterfinals, well, anything can go.
Absolutely. And we saw that already a couple of weeks ago in the EBT finals in Italy. Well, another team we saw a lot at that EBT finals was the women's champions, which was practically the Danish national team. So you got to see a lot of them in action already. They're in Group B alongside Spain, USA, and Vietnam. One of the favorites for this championship, you think?
Definitely. I think when it comes to knowing each other, which is crucial because of the mechanics of the game, and where your teammates will be and what you can expect from them for the passes that you're going to go for. Denmark has this advantage, and like you said, they play together almost every event. At least 4 or 5 players play in this Danish dream team for the EBT and also for the Champions Cup. But then they get like 2 or 3 players from indoor that go for the national team. At the time, as you remember, in 2019, indeed was the first time experience as a goalkeeper in beach handball. Well, and they won the championship, so they work very well in this aspect. And even the men's do the same. They have like 4 or 5 players that play around all the events, and they're the core. They're the core of the national team, which gives them a really good advantage.
And over in Group C, quickly touching there, it seems like it's pretty straightforward at this stage. Netherlands look really good. I saw them play against Australia earlier. Classic Netherlands. They were banging in the points. And Argentina were pushed hard, though, by Australia. They almost lost that second set, which could have been a real disaster for them. They're going to go through, though.
Then they deserved. I think Australia deserved at least a set, yeah.
Yeah, they have a chance, though, tomorrow, Australia against Uruguay. Winner goes through there and stays alive in the competition, which it's hard to know. I haven't seen too much of Uruguay's women, so that'll be that's what it's nice to see at these world championships as well. Teams like Uruguay or like Puerto Rico in the men's side, or Thailand or Vietnam, and seeing how they play, because there's almost in every single game one of the teams has a good set. Nobody's getting absolutely smashed all the time. There's good quality there throughout the tournament.
Yeah, it also depends on what the coach is able to take from their players. If the coach goes like, okay, no, I'm not going to give everything on this set because it's already by 10. I don't care. I'm going to lose it, no problem. But then in second set, that's a totally different story, where he manages to break the opponent's defense, manages to tear apart their attack and stuff like this. And then you see, okay, they're not as bad as you think. Mm-hmm. And especially after 4 years from the last World Championship, Chris, we always have new surprises. Yeah. And this is not a 100% straight bulletproof event. Surprises will happen. Definitely surprises will happen, and already happened today. So,
Yeah.
like we said, Brazil losing 2-0 against Germany with a 12-point deficit. And also in men, Spain lost against Uruguay. So things are not as sure as everybody thinks.
No. Also, with the way it's set up with so many games over the course of just 5 days. So the championship starts today on a Tuesday, and it's over by Sunday, or 6 days rather, and 2 games every day. You know, it is intense, and I'm sure that
play with 38 degrees.
I bloody well imagine so.
And at night you think, okay, it's going to be colder. No, it's still 30.
But yeah, it's shaping up nicely already in the women's side, and I think that's a nice little overview of the groups. Not going to ask for any predictions now. As you said, you basically said in your last sentences there's no point in making any. But yeah, we're going to take a little break now, as we're going to head over to the chat I had with the guys in Hermosa Beach, California, back in May, speaking to Ebiye Udo-Udoma, Brian Cook, and Raj Chattopadhyay. Now, the good thing about this was that it was a beautiful setting. It was late in the evening, right after a training session. We were right by the beach. It looked great, but Marcio, I'm going to admit, it wasn't great for the audio. The wind was blowing. The sand was flickering. And so, yeah, not that I wouldn't say it's the best audio product we've ever come up with, but it is understandable. And I've done a little bit of extra work on it to make it so. But I think the content itself, the chat with the 3 guys, really makes up for it. So we'll listen into our chat with the guys, and then we'll be back with the men's side of the competition. Well, I think it would be remiss of me, after doing a training session with RIP Beach Handball in California, not to do a little interview afterwards. And I think we're going to post this just at the start of the World Championship. So first, let's have the 3 of you introduce yourselves, starting with
Brian Cook,
and former guest on the show,
the handball ninja Ebiye Udo-Udoma,
and third of all, perhaps the most difficult name of the 3,
Raj Chattopadhyay.
Let's go with Raj. I think we can make that work. So we've just had a really nice training session on this Thursday evening in probably one of the most recognizable beach handball spots in the world, due to all the content you guys are really good at putting up, and also the building as the background of it. And I think we'll start with you, ABA. The last time we spoke was just before the World Championship, way back in 2018. And a lot has happened since then, of course. And of course, we've been covering the beach championships over the summers as well, but we haven't spoken to you on the podcast since then. And it's a really big summer for you this summer, with 2 major championships coming up. So I think I'll just let you talk about where you are preparation-wise at the moment, and what's coming up for you.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, we have a pretty big summer ahead of us, as next month we have obviously the IHF World Championships that we qualified for just last month in our Continental Championship, and then the following month, literally 2 weeks afterwards, we're hosting the World Games. So really big summer. As for us, as far as where we are in our preparation, as of right now, we have finished our final selection tryouts for the Greece roster, so just the World Championship roster, and we should be expecting the roster announcement for that within the next couple of days. So I know guys are pretty anxious in our pool at this stage. By the time this goes out, obviously that roster is going to be announced, but as of right now, guys are just waiting to find out if they made the roster for Greece or not. And then we'll be training primarily here in the build-up for that. May spend some time overseas with another national team, still trying to iron that out before ultimately competing in Crate. And then the roster for Birmingham doesn't get announced until post-Crate. So kind of based on performance for the guys there, and then availability differences between the 2 competitions. The roster for the World Games will be announced after that. So that's where we are right now.
So we'll go back to a little bit more on that later, but I think it's always nice to hear, particularly in beach handball, about the introduction stories, and particularly so with beach handball players in the USA. So maybe we'll start with you, Raj. You could tell us a little bit about how you got into the sport.
So I saw indoor handball for the first time in the 2016 Olympics, and I thought, boy, this looks cool. I'd like to play this. I found the LA group that played, and I asked them, hey, when do you guys play? They said, oh, come out to the beach. I thought that was weird. This is clearly an indoor sport, but all right, it's summer. Maybe they're just having fun at the beach, right? And I come out, and they were like, no, this is a different sport. The first guy I met was Ebiye, and he's like, yeah, you just throw the ball however you want. He starts throwing right-handed, starts throwing left-handed. I was like, okay, that's fine. He starts spinning both ways, and I was like, what is going on? This isn't normal, is it? And it turns out, no, it's not normal, but it was very intimidating. Now, having gone through an Olympic cycle, I understand why we use indoor as a trap to bring people into the beach sport, but I feel like we retain them. It's been super fun playing the sport, and I'm glad that I got honeypotted like that.
Okay, nice. And whereabouts in the country are you originally from?
I grew up near Washington, D.C., and then I moved out to L.A. in mid-2010s.
Yeah. What brought you to LA?
Work, yeah. I just came out here.
And you do?
I'm an engineer.
Or?
I work at SpaceX.
There's a reason why I was prompting you there, because I was told to ask you, because you don't really like talking about that, do you?
Best job to anybody in handball. I think that's definitely up there.
It's definitely up there.
Definitely is. Yeah.
So, Brian, I think you're somebody that many people in the beach handball community would know and will have seen play for the USA before. Maybe you can tell us a little bit more about your story and how you got into the sport.
Some people may know me as B Money, but I started in 2016, and I was working at a grocery store. Anybody here in the U.S. will know what Trader Joe's is. It's just a popular grocery store chain. And a gentleman by the name of Juliano Oliveira was an assistant coach for the men's team at the time of the just starting men's beach team in 2016. And as a former baseball player, myself in high school and a bit in college, Juliano was like, hey, you can throw a ball. You should come try this handball thing. I'm like, nah, no way. I brushed it off, and then he was gone sometime in the middle of July 2016. I'm like, where the hell is he? And then I was introduced through social media, saying, oh my God, everybody's in Budapest playing this thing. Oh my God, this is a world championship? What have I been missing? So for 6 months, I pushed it off, and finally, when they got back 3 weeks later, I was like, okay, they're holding in practice. What is this? And I finally went out, and I was introduced by literally meeting somebody at my work at a grocery store, and I showed up. I'm like Raj said, I'm just like him. I met Ebiye, and as somebody who played a throwing sport my whole life, I was like, okay, this guy can throw, and he switches hands. I'm like, oh my God, this is new. Okay, and then was just kind of exposed to this wonderful sport, and I think that what is really truly cool is to find this amazing family of people. And I think that it goes for not only beach but for indoor too. I think handball people, however weird we are, or the unique bunch we are, it doesn't matter where you're from in the world. We all somehow find and/or have found a way to be a part of this great family, and it doesn't matter where you're from, that you feel welcome. I think that's what's been a blessing, to really kind of be introduced to this anywhere we go in the world. It's, like, oh, you play handball, that's cool. Like, even from the time, of like going to Brazil the first time, we were just, so people were like, oh, trying to like take pictures of you. I'm like, dude, I stack milk and eggs on a shelf like at 4 o'clock in the morning some days. What are you talking about? This is no way. So to see now where we've grown as a progression, and to make a lot of those connections internationally has been such a cool thing to be a part of. From that weird kind of beginning to all of a sudden now I'm thinking, wow, this is now 5, almost 6 years be a part of playing this. If you would have asked me before, I would have been like, no, there's no way. Like, yeah, cool, I'll still be doing this. And it's like, well, yeah, here we are with this amazing journey still progressing forward, and a huge summer coming.
So you had a big arm in you, right? You're a pitcher.
I was a pitcher.
And they put you in goal.
Yeah, they put me in goal. Well, not initially. Well, that's the funniest thing. The funny thing, I made the 2018 for World Championship team in Russia as a defender.
Yeah.
And I normally played defense. And up until about 2019, I played defense, and a normal goalkeeper had left, and I was the only person in town that was crazy enough to jump in the goal. And I said, you know what, we'll do it. And since 2019, I have been playing goalkeeper no formal training, I guess, and just said, you know what, let's do this. So, now I'm just the one that's a little bit sick in the head that just decides to jump in front of the ball. But I think it adds a cool thing because I can play defense, I guess. I can play in the goal. I can shoot if I need to.
It really makes you versatile. We definitely appreciate you. We definitely appreciate you.
Yeah, sick group of goalkeepers.
I think the moral what I've learned so far is Ebiye is very intimidating.
Before I ask for some of the nice stories about you, Ebiye, let's go back to the qualification for the World Championship. You had to come through the North American and Caribbean Championship. You already had a spot in the World Games because of being the home nation. But that championship, you won gold in the end, but there were a few tough games along the way. Tell us about that.
Went through pool play more or less as expected. We were able to win those 3 games 2-0. And then the big surprise of the competition was the morning. I'm keeping that in. Hey, if you're going to keep it in, let's roll with it. At least on our end, we prepared well, went through pool play, won each of those games 2-0. And then the big surprise was in the other group, Trinidad had upset Mexico, which is who we previously played in the final in 2019. And because Mexico had lost that game to Trinidad, Mexico then became our semifinal opponent. We were expecting to play them in the final. And that ended up being the big test of the competition, right? Because we're in Mexico, they're the host country, and that's the Greece game. Like, that's the semifinal. Everything is really on the line for that game. And so that, for us, really felt like the final.
How was that for you? Because you come into the championship knowing that you are the big favourites to win it, and you have this clear path through to the final, and then all of a sudden it becomes a little bit muddy.
Certain guys are definitely more nervous than others. I won't mention any names.
Okay.
But ultimately,
I also want to mention this thing.
No, they aren't here. They're at home right now. But ultimately, I came into the competition knowing that Mexico was likely going to be our finals opponent, and they were the team that we ended up putting the most amount of preparation in for. We know them extremely well. We play in their domestic tournament. They play in our domestic tournament, so we know their national team pool pretty deeply. And I went into the tournament expecting to have to face Mexico to win it. And we put a lot of preparation in for that Mexico game, and obviously they know us extremely well. And I think that showed in our semifinal game, just the amount of adjustments that were made on both sides of the ball. And it ended up coming down to a shootout. I was lucky, shooter number 10, who was able to put the one-pointer in to get my guys to Greece. But it was a competitive game. That was the one game that we had dropped a set. And like I said, Mexico, they know us extremely well. And I think they used some of that intel to maybe make a couple saves that other teams would have made on us against some of our lesser experienced guys. But it was definitely a challenge, but we were prepared on our end. I knew that was going to be the game that we had to win. So even though it may not have been the clearest path, quote unquote, to get to Greece, we knew that it was going to be a team we'd likely face anyway, so we were prepared.
Yeah, and in a way, that semi-final, because 2 teams are going through, was actually the most important game. So great that you got to face them and beat them in that game. And I mean, harsh for Mexico, of course, to not get that spot at home, but that's sport.
That's probably the most stressful sporting event I've ever watched in my life. I was Brian and I were both not at the tournament. I think I texted Brian 200 times during that game in that 20-minute span. It was me, him, and Drew in a thread. And I think Drew Donlan was working. And so I think he just opened up his phone at 5 o'clock and he saw 400 texts from me and Brian. Just be like, what was that call? What is going on?
No, what is this?
Absolutely no description.
The funny thing is when I'm playing, I don't feel any nerves whatsoever. It's only when I'm watching other games
Agreed.
that
Agreed.
I actually get nervous. I remember watching the Trinidad-Mexico game in our hotel the morning of, because we had already beat Puerto Rico, so we knew, okay, we're facing the loser this game. It goes to a shootout. I'm nervous for both teams. Granted, I'm not from either country. I'm genuinely nervous for every shooter. But when I'm in the game myself, I don't know if it's just because I'm in the game, I don't have time to be nervous, but literally no nerves when I play. I get super anxious when I watch a beach handball game. I was watching the Sweden-Spain game. I was just I can't believe this is happening right now. It's the weirdest dynamic. I'm on the court. I'm just playing the game. I'm in the moment. Nerves are the last thing on my mind. But I think it's definitely more nerve-wracking watching the game than actually playing it.
Particularly when it's your team.
You have no agency. You can't say anything. You can't make an adjustment. You're just watching from miles away. And you don't have like a goal at the time, right? I feel like when you're playing, you're thinking like, okay, how do I win? How do I score?
I think the game's the distraction from being nervous.
Exactly. But I had
actually
no
fun.
game.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about this place where we had this lovely training session this evening on Hermosa Beach, the USA Beach Handball Center of Excellence. A really nice spot, and it seems to be the real hub for this team over the last few years, which since we last spoke has really grown so much over the last 4 years. What's your perspective on what you have here?
It's super nice to just not only just have a home base, but have a familiar kind of spot to know that wherever you may be in your own progression of the game, that you're going to have a place to come to, and you're going to have a group of guys to learn from and grow with, and more importantly, have a great time with. You can't beat the sand. I was born and raised in Redondo Beach, actually, just sitting next to this, and you can't beat the community. It's really, truly, the South Bay area, as we call it in Los Angeles, is a really kind of quieter kind of part of a larger hustle and bustle of LA, but I think it's just a great place to be able to have a beautiful setting to train, to have a little bit of curiosity from people. We're still working on that, and trying to have people, what's this thing you guys are playing, and we've even gotten to the point of an organic growth of little kids, young kids walking up last weekend for our men's tryout/training camp. We had an extra kind of pop-up goal set up off to the side, and this whole little kid's birthday party was off, running around playing games. They saw the goal, picked up the ball, and within an hour they're all just throwing the ball in the goal, having a great time. And it's super cool to see the game be embraced, not just by us, but slowly but surely we're working on the community. But I know the guys will agree. You can't beat it with the weather, and even if it's sunny sometimes and it's a little bit colder in the winter, it's still nice to have the sun out and be able to get out and train and continue to try to have this year-round aspect of beach handball. I know that some of our European family do not get to enjoy some of that aspect, even though I do very much enjoy seeing I think, this is in the Netherlands? They have those indoor, they've got a couple indoor ones, maybe Sweden has an indoor. Those are beautiful. But I wish we could have that in the winter because the ball stings for sure. But it's just, you can't ask for truly like a better place to really just grow our sport. I know the guys will agree on that. Yeah.
I mean, to be clear, it doesn't get too cold here. Like, even in the winter,
everything's relevant, right?
Yeah. It's like 20 degrees Celsius. I don't know, like 60 degrees Fahrenheit at worst. Yeah, I mean, it's gorgeous. Whenever we talk to players, especially in Europe, and it's just like, do you train at like a river? Like, I know there's a beach in Germany, and they're like, no, we have an indoor facility. I'm like, oh, isn't that half the fun that you're like outside and you're like by the water? They always look at me weird when I say the river. Like, that doesn't make any sense. But no, I mean, you're just here. The ocean's beautiful. The scene's so nice. Like, it doesn't. It's not hard. It's like, in terms of a training facility, this is as good as it gets. You come out, the sand's amazing. It's very soft. It's deep, and you have just great time, good weather all the year round. It makes it very easy to like get out of bed and be like, yeah, I'm just gonna go to the beach and play a sport that I enjoy a lot.
Raj, you mentioned just before we started recording about being in Nazaré. Was that your first international experience or European experience with the team?
I had gone to Poland in, I'm gonna butcher this, but Płocka in 2019. Yeah.
Before we won Marca.
That was my first international experience. Honestly, once I played in that tournament, I was like, I have to keep playing. There's no way I can stop at this point. This is too fun. Just the tournament is all the tournaments that we've been to have just been such a great experience in terms of like, it feels like it's just like a big party where there's like some handball going on. And it's like, what else could you ask for? People are super friendly. The community is amazing in like all these places. So after that, and then 2020 season was obviously muted due to the pandemic, and then 2021 we were able to go back out. So then we had a few tournaments last summer. We went to Canary Islands for a tune-up for Euros, where the U.S. team went, and then we went to Orihuela and Nazare on the Arena 1000 tour, and like can't say enough good things about both of those massive tournaments. It was honestly crazy to see, like, our player pool is 60, like at most, generous, male and female combined. Yeah. Maybe around 60. And it was crazy to see these tournaments of like 1,000 people, where it's like, wow, and they can all play. Like, it's high level handball the whole way through. It was just very fun to see that, and it was very like, oh yeah, this is a huge thing in other places, and it's fun to be a part of this.
It's nice to see also last year as well. I mean, there was a good cohort of American players playing in the Champions Cup and the EBT finals as well, including yourself, ABA, and you've been around the European bloc as well, Brian.
Yeah. No, I think what was the first time I went was 2017. We were in the Czech Republic. We were Prague, right, ABA? We're playing Prague, playing on the Beach Open on a river, right? The beach on a river. There you go. Which was a blast. Just realizing truly what Europeans think of beach handball. Much more of the summer games. Seen a couple of, I think they were Slovakian guys just ripping a couple beers and smoking some cigs before the game. I'm like, yeah, it's heaters before the game, baby. Let's go.
Different countries,
different countries, different things. But that and going to France, after that was fun. That was a lot of fun. Just having, you American, you play handball? C'est magnifique. It's great. You're like, oh wow, cool. Like, I play handball now, and now like I'm cool on the scale of Europeans. Like, this is great. Where have I been? But no, that was a super cool introduction, and being able to play in Russia was truly a blast at the World Championship. But last summer too, of being in Spain and also at Nazaré in Portugal, like, it just had this aspect, this feel of. Here in the U.S. we have beach volleyball. You have the AVP tour, you call it. And I had that feeling of that, but you have the diversity of so many age groups, so many kids. I mean, Ross just pointed out you had so many, just hundreds, if not 1,000 kids out there, up through the adult levels. The energy too, playing on the center court, like being able to play in so many different games, places from Qatar to the World Championship, or even places in Brazil, but being able to play in that center court in Orihuela that we all had, that was one of the coolest experiences of my life. I think sport, it's amazing. So being able to travel in Europe a little bit has just been so much fun. Plus, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, this is all a family. Like, we've all talked about this, a family. The most fun we have is, I think, just all traveling as a group, shenanigans we get in. Like, it is just like a total blast, all of us, and it's to be able to do it with our European brethren, where handball is actually the thing where people go, hey, what's that y'all are playing? Is kind of a cool thing. So anytime we can go to Europe, and we're coming free, Greece. It's definitely cool to be a part of.
Yeah, I think even from an Irish perspective, where we are very much at the outskirts of the handball world and the beach handball world, it's nice to. The first time we sent a team, our team, the Brass Bros, to Camelot, which is happening this weekend, actually, right? And our first game was against the eventual European finalists the next year, Norway. Not a club team, but against Norway. And then you end up going for the tip-off in your first serious game in Camelot, and you're up against Norway, and they're like, oh yeah, it's so lovely to see an Irish beach handball team playing. And I was like, well, wait till you see us play.
Thanks.
But it wasn't that bad, But to be fair, there were much more of that game was us leaning on our handball skills rather than our beach handball skills. Too many times it was me basically just leaning past or finding a way past a defender to place the ball into the hands of Alex Kulash on the line, and then he would do a spin shot.
Here's a question for you. How much in being on the outskirts in Ireland, do the people of Ireland kind of get a feeling for handball? Do they have no clue, or is it more like...
We definitely have the challenge also with the name, even in our local sports in Ireland, the traditional sports, the sports from outside as well. And with the name, we have that handball that you have here as well, the one where you slap it against the wall. So I understand.
What's that? The ball against the wall?
Yeah. Everyone's uncle played that somewhere in the countryside or on the streets of Brooklyn or something like that.
But not to be too much of a tangent, this is a question I've always wanted to ask you. Is why do you think English-speaking countries became averse to handball?
Well, I think it's one of the reasons is our colonial past. We have to blame the Brits, don't we?
It's the colonial sports.
In a way, we just have too many of our own sports. When you think about the Commonwealth countries like Canada, formerly the USA, South Africa, New Zealand, Australia, there's rugby, there's cricket, there's hockey, and that's field hockey, and in the USA you have all of your sports. We have our sports in Ireland as well, so there's just so much competition there.
I think it's just a tradition thing, isn't it? But it's something that definitely, we've spoken about it a lot on the podcast and with other people, like with the world as it is right now, no longer are we bound to the sports we grew up with, and I think that's the great opportunity for us, and that's why we have to keep pushing, because it's going to be, the UK is a great example of that. Post London 2012, you just have to look at the amount of schools that are playing in now and give them 15-20 years and they should have the players to play at a world level, and hopefully it'll be the same case with the US, whether it's beach or indoor post LA 2028. I'll ask you about that.
Even
at the
post
end.
Birmingham 2022.
Post Birmingham 2022 for the beach, yeah.
I think that's what's cool too. Is just to we're going to start to have opportunities. Birmingham is a great opportunity. This is the first time that Ebiye, you got to play in Oceanside in 2018 to qualify for Russia, but this will be. Granted, future self if you make the team, a fist bump, dude. But the first chance to play in front of a true U.S. crowd, in front of Americans, because it's always been internationally. People
That's the experience the majority of our national team players in our pool now haven't had.
Other than maybe your local, yearly tournament in Southern California, I've never gotten the chance to play in front of my parents. To even have people be in the same hemisphere as my family and friends, so they're not like, okay, is your game? Okay, your game is at. Oh, damn it! It's at 2:00 in the morning our time. Shoot! Oh, I gotta watch that. So it's going to be a cool thing, and like I said, that we get kind of this global growth that people recognize. This game's kind of cool. This family is really a cool thing, and we can help on so many aspects, bringing people together of not just for handball, but I think outside of that, especially in this day and age.
Especially the World Games, it's a multi-sport event, so I'm just trying to leverage the collective obscure sportness from the games that are to be competed in Birmingham, and just see if we can hold future handball fans who haven't known the game, at least talking with the guys in the International World Games Association, because I've worked with them over the past couple of years and kind of promoting this event. They're very big on handball and how handball will be received, because where we're playing the competition is a really big American football city.
Yeah.
Right. Birmingham, Alabama is they're playing Iron Bowls. Iron Bowls is a big college football rivalry between two of the schools in the state of Alabama. So it's a really big sports city, and it seems as if everybody at the International Games Association feels as if handball is going to be one of the more well-liked events. So just doing the best that I can to make sure that our guys just put on a good show, and if we do that, hopefully, that's a catalyst for the growth of the sport for the next generation coming up, because they see it. They see Team USA playing, hopefully representing well. We're one of 8 teams, so 12.5% chance just off of that to compete for that gold. So it's a great opportunity, and we're just going to do the best that I can to make sure that my guys can make the most of it.
I think good show is a good description too. It's such an aesthetic sport at the top level. It's so much fun to watch. I think it might be some of the nuances of the game are probably a little too obscure for a casual viewer picking it up for the first time, being like, why are they spinning? That's weird. I'm sure.
That's why I try to push so hard for there to be commentary and someone who knows what's going on, because it's really hard for somebody watching the first time to understand what the hell is going on.
Exactly, yeah.
Why is there somebody in in a different color jersey running around. Why do they take normal shots and the other guys are flying through the air? Or why is there 4v3? Why are they running out and in? Yeah, it's tricky.
Yeah, but if we can get past that border or like that, what's the word? Yeah, initial barrier. Yeah, I feel like it should catch on pretty well. It's all the things people like in sports all combined into one sport.
Now, I want to, before I ask maybe the last question, I've said we're going to have some nice testimony. So in a couple of sentences, maximum 30 seconds, you know, you spoke about your first encounters with him, and, you know, Ebiye is undoubtedly the face of the sport in the US.
So tell us about the man away from the Instagram account.
It's so funny because I don't know how to explain it. Like, we've all been such close friends, and if anybody knows Ebiye, I work now for my family business in nearby. Ebiye literally lives in his condo directly behind my family business. So like I've come to, it's so weird to think of like, oh yeah, my friend has got, you know, over what is it now, 14,000 followers and stuff like that. Right. You know, I mean, we've all roomed in Raj knows this, we've all roomed together in Brazil and stuff like that. But he's a humble person. It's so funny. He's just very simple, and people are like, oh, it's Ebiye. No, it's that's he. And you know, what is great about him, he just cares about the sport. He's a goofball. He doesn't say it. He's a goofball. But he cares about the sport and all of us, and continually helps me be a better person. I think that's what's cool. Is it doesn't cut around the edges of you know, who you are. You just see the best. And I think that's what is cool about Ebiye, and you know, he's just himself, very approachable. And if you ever see him, anybody, please come take a picture and smile with him. He would love it. But Ebiye is one of a kind because of the kind heart that he has for everything that he puts into the game, and for not only that, for what he puts into individuals as well. I know that he's put into myself, Raj, a lot of work of building ourselves not only in the game but kind of character and other stuff. So it's more than 30 seconds, but
now you come up with some new stuff now, Raj.
Yeah, this is tough. He covered everything.
shit, I'm sorry.
No, I would say one thing that I admire a lot of Ebiye is he decided he was going to do beach handball 6-7 years ago, and then he just went all in on it. And this is, I mean, even now it is not a huge sport, and I think that really shows his love for the game, where he was like, this is what I'm going to do, this is what my life's going to be. I think the thing that doesn't really come across on Instagram as well that about him with handball is just his game IQ is absurd. Like, obviously Ebiye is a great athlete, but also it took me like 3 years to say something about handball where I sent him a message and then he couldn't find me a clip immediately. I mean, immediately, where he was like, yeah, I saw this like 6 years ago at this tournament this one time. I'm like, it was like one of the proudest things happened for me the last 2 years was that moment.
Finding obscure
one idea where he was like, oh, I don't think I've seen that before. I was like, oh my God, this must be new. Yeah, but fantastic guy, good leader on and off the court, and just one of the best handball references in the world, I think.
Well, that's it. And Ebiye, I'm not going to let you get a chance to respond to that. It's just, you just have to let those beautiful comments sit with you. But final questions then to you. And big summer, as we already spoke about, World Games, there's many things to play for the future of the sport as well in the country. But the World Championship in Greece this summer, it's a very straightforward aim. You know, you're there to compete. And I think the interesting thing with the USA at these championships in recent years is clearly you have the ability. You've been knocking on the door, so to speak, in the last couple of championships, but it hasn't really clicked for the team, haven't been able to really contend for the medals. So what's going to happen this time around?
I feel as if, you know, as I mentioned earlier, I don't feel any pressure when I play. Yeah, I think it's always just an opportunity to be able to play beach handball. You know, nothing's ever guaranteed with handball in the United States. So whenever we're at a world tournament with a full squad, I consider that a win. And then from there, we've had talent. I think maybe we haven't been disciplined in some facets of the game. Defense has been like our obvious Achilles heel over time, but we've put in a lot of work. I've put in a lot of work to try to help guys understand that part of the game a little bit better. And like I said, talent-wise, between myself, Drew Donlin, Jacob Garcia, like we've had attackers who can create high percentage looks and put the ball in the back of the net. And we've had that since, I'd say, really 2017. Like I think we've had an elite offense. And I know in Qatar we were third in points in that third in offense, right? So I think for us, it's historically been defense. And then obviously, there are little details in the game and the transition. And you also have to compete with the fact that the rest of the world's always getting better. I thought Qatar in particular was a really good opportunity for us as far as where our talent level was in relationship to the competition. On the back of the pandemic, a lot of countries have gotten a lot better. So we know going into Greece, Argentina's gotten significantly better on the back of the Youth Olympic Games, so they'll be tough in our group. And then ultimately, there are another 12 teams outside of our group that we have to get through. But on any given day, I have faith in us being able to score. And as long as we can be competitive, then the sky's the limit.
So what would you define as success then? Maybe that's a fairer way to look at it.
I feel as if Europeans are very humble and very realistic in how they approach things. I think for us,
big American answer.
Yeah, the obvious American answer is, you play for gold.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no point in going into a tournament and say we're going to shoot for 7th place. Or going into a tournament, we're going to shoot for 4th place. Ultimately, we're going to try to finish as high as we can. Whatever opponent we face in the main round and quarterfinal, it's not as if, let's say, like hypothetically speaking, our goal is to finish in 7th place. We're not going to deliberately throw a quarterfinal game so that we can play for 7th place. We get to a quarterfinal game, we're going to try to win that game. So I think it's just the American mindset that you're just playing for gold. It's just kind of how you approach things. But like I said, for me, it's a blessing whenever we get to play beach. So let's just get there, and then once we're there, we're playing for as high of a place as we can get.
With beach handball, anything can happen.
It's beach handball.
One step at a time.
Ebiye, Brian, Raj, thank you so much for the interview and also for the training earlier. It was an absolute pleasure.
Welcome to the United States.
Welcome.
That was it. Thank you so much to Ebiye, Brian, and Raj. And Marcio, as I said before, you were there a few months ago over in Hermosa Beach. What did you think of the setup they've got over in California?
Well, the thing is, I was in March, kind of like in LA was really good, like 20-something degrees. Really, like I had like a small burn in my skin after 2 hours in the sun. But I find it funny that they build the courts every day for training. Every time they do this, this is like an extra effort. It's not like something it stays there for like 3 months. No, every day they build it, they train. They take it down and go home. It's I should clap. I said.
Well, on that occasion, I helped put it together and take it apart. So I know how they feel. It's it reminds me a lot of what it's like to play handball back at home. Not necessarily the setting up the court, but putting the goals together every time. But yeah, and great guys as well. Huh? We're all really nice guys.
Definitely. Everybody was happy to see me. They were like, "Oh my God, it's Dr. Beach Handball" and stuff like this. And I'm like, no, it's just me, Marcio, okay? It's just me. But it's so funny because, like they go like, everybody goes like, "Oh my God, I see all your videos and all the content you do for the beach handball. And I love it. We watched it all, like every game and stuff." And I'm like, I feel really, I wouldn't say proud, but I feel really humble, to see that across the ocean, across an entire country as huge as the USA, those guys back there in Hermosa Beach are doing it for them because they love the sport, beach handball, but also because they do it for the country, to represent their country. And that feeling it's really, really good.
They are your people, huh? Just across the world, still beach handball people.
Some of them have the weird conjugation of jobs. Like Charlie is a game engineer in Blizzard, something like that, and I go like, what?
Yeah, we talked about that in the interview as well with Raj, who's an engineer for SpaceX. And I couldn't believe it. Brian Cook on the way over before we started the interview was like, "Make sure to ask what Raj's job is." And I was like, "Why?" He was like, "He works for SpaceX." It's like, this is ridiculous.
Okay,
yeah,
the majority of us are like, we're amateurs or something like that, but there are some professional indoor players playing this. But it's amazing to see an engineer for the space industry, playing beach handball. You're like, whoa, we've come a long way.
And as for the US team, they're in the men's competition in Group A, and it's an interesting little group developing there, playing alongside Greece, Argentina, and Puerto Rico. In Group B, it's Croatia, Spain, Uruguay, and Ecuador. In Group C, it's Denmark, Norway, Egypt, and Iran. Group D, Brazil, Portugal, Qatar, and New Zealand. And starting with the US guys, Group D is a group of death. Well, a group of death for New Zealand anyway. But we'll talk more about them because I'm really, really impressed with what they've done today. But USA first, because we just came off watching the USA-Greece match. USA with a bit of a different squad to what they usually have. A couple of players missing for them. So they've brought in some young players, including the guy with the best name in beach handball, Maverick McCurdy. Playing as a specialist and a player I really like, and seeing him at this level for the first time, Cody Dominic, who's playing as the playmaker, he's phenomenal, like really, really good player. But I think they had an up and down day, the USA. They started against Argentina, which was, I think, my favorite game of the day. That one where they lost the first set by 2 points, lost the first set by a single point, won the second set by 2. And maybe that was even 1 point as well, because Ebiye scored like a free throw in the last second. Exactly. And then it went to a shootout, and Luke Ngoyan made a big save on the last round of penalties, and Ebiye put it away to win the game. But then we just saw them play against the host, Greece, and it was a big atmosphere, and it seemed like it got to them. What do you think?
I think so. There was like a lot of people just supporting Greece there. And for them, it's kind of like, I wouldn't say tough, but it feels weird, like they've been building this team for the last 2 years, despite this pandemic state and stuff. They've been building up. And I think they lack what sometimes we have in Europe, is kind of like the experience to overcome some details, those details that we know they're just a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right, 1 second waiting, just one more second waiting for the pass. I think they were lacking this, and they lost the first set by 8. But in the second one, they did a really good job, and only by 2 points, which is unfortunate for them. And they could have draw at least the second one, but the goalkeeper was there.
Yeah, and a couple of like silly errors as well, like two substitution errors, which is really not good. And one of them,
it kills a team. It kills a team. Yeah.
One of them meant that Willard Johnson, there, one of the specialist defenders, got a red card. So that was a bit of a nightmare for them. But they find themselves in a decent position still. They play Puerto Rico tomorrow, and looks like it could be a 3-way tie if things go well for them. Greece, though, I mean, we saw them last year at the Euro, and they looked pretty average, if you ask me.
They found new players. Like not all of the players that were in Greece are here. I think only like 2 or 3 are here. And the rest are kind of like new players that, they had opportunity to check and had time to follow new talent to come to the beach, because they're really tall now. They have a really tall team now.
That was not the impression I got last year, but as you said, I guess that's the advantage of being the home nation as well. That, again, that's something you're building up to. Interesting group overall.
Although I think the US can go in second place from this group. They definitely have the chance to go in second place.
Yeah.
They just need to hope that Greece wins against Argentina. 2-0, 2-1, doesn't matter. And if they get to get 2-0 from Puerto Rico, then they go through as second place. And that's already some points for the next round, yeah.
That's it. And a couple of scary teams waiting in the main round from Group B. Croatia, the finalists from 4 years ago and constant title contenders, Spain, though, you mentioned the loss to Uruguay. Uruguay and Ecuador in there. Again, when you're looking at it on paper, you're like, okay, that's an easy walk in the park on day one for those two European teams, but not the case.
No, not the case. They lost 2-1, and despite going, like, both of them were scoring a lot of goals. Both sets had more than 25 goals each from each team, like 26-24 first set for Uruguay, 24-28 for Spain. But I think the problem was the shootout. Because it's 7-2 for Uruguay, which means or Spain like really missed big in the shootout, which is not a usual thing. Usually they have really good spinners that do like really good 360, or the goalkeeper was amazing in the shootout. That's what I can say. But although this is not as good as you think, Spain usually has this thing of coming, from like this not underdog position, because everybody knows their potential and the quality that they have, and because they have this amazing Arena 1000, which is like a tournament they do yearly and during the summer. But usually they have this thing of like maybe lose one or two games in the group stage, and then when it comes to the quarterfinals, they just put their minds to it and go through.
They should still have a chance to go through, potentially with points. They're playing Croatia tomorrow. They should go through because they beat Ecuador, but they're going to need to beat Croatia if they want to take some points with them.
Yeah, it's not going to be easy for them. Over
in Group C, we have the reigning European champions, two-time reigning champions now, Denmark, and in alongside Norway. Both of them getting double victories over Egypt and Iran.
With the same number of sets.
Yeah, 2-2 in the first round of games, 2-1 in the second round of games. Denmark, we speak a lot about over the years, but Norway, I think that's pretty impressive for them. I wasn't sure exactly how strong they would be this time around, but at least when it comes to the non-European teams, they're banging away the points.
I think in Norway, I saw a little bit of their game against Iran. Christopher Eriksen, as you all know, former MVP 2019 in Poland, was just on the third floor grabbing this in-flight shot that everybody thought, nah, that ball is gone. And he just, I don't know, it didn't break his back, but I would be completely broken, shattered on the floor and on the sand. But the guy just managed to grab it and scored an amazing in-flight shot. But I think that what we see here with these two games, Chris, is the difference of African teams and Asian teams, especially in the Middle East, that they usually play against each other, and then they find this different type of handball, different type of style coming from the Europe. And they lost 2-0, but they managed to overcome that difference, and win at least one set in the next game, which means that they have this capability of adapting, especially against two Scandinavian teams. So both of them adapt really well, winning that set that allowed them to go to shootout, which means that both Egypt and Iran have the chance, because they play against each other, they have a chance to go through with at least with something to the next round. And I saw that Iran won against Qatar like a month ago or something, kind of like the preparation for this World Championship. And I'm very interested in their team, because there's this fellow called Mr. Handball from Iran, and he follows, and the guy is amazing. He follows everything from handball, from indoor and beach, and he's there with the team. So we can expect a lot of content coming from him, and it's amazing. He's really journalist type. He just gives you all the inside, all the things that happen. It's really good.
That's going to be a game to watch out for then tomorrow, Iran against Egypt. That's 2:00 Central European time. The winner takes it all, and the loser will be in the probably the group nobody wants to be in, the consolation round at the end. And Group D, we've got your boys in Portugal. As you mentioned, you alluded to earlier, they had an up and down day. I watched the full game with New Zealand, And I have to say, I loved the pace that both teams played at. They really just, it was very pure kind of love of the sports style. And New Zealand, I think they've improved big time over the years.
Definitely, Chris. I was really impressed with New Zealand with the type of beach handball they approach. They kind of like similar to Netherlands when they began. When they started going to these championships, like really high pace, basic beach handball, but effective. And whenever you're like, okay, I cannot pass anyone, just go for shooting. Because that's it. Like, at least you shoot. You can get a score or not, doesn't matter. But at least the ball doesn't go for the opponent team just because. No, you at least shoot. And as you know, sand is a very regular, ground, and anything can happen. Like, you shoot to the sand, goes over the goalkeeper, and it's goal. So 2 points awarded after a spin shot. But I really enjoyed their beach handball, their style, and I think that if this team manages to get like a more competition, a little bit more competition, like 2 or 3 more events, I think they can grow and to become like a really like interesting team to some of like, for example, Portugal. I would say some interesting team to go against, and maybe it's a shootout.
To give you some perspective there, so they qualified for this championship by playing a 3-match series against Australia. That which they won 2 matches to 1. Before that was I think it was in March or April. Before that, their previous games were in February 2020. And I know this because I was there playing with them at the Australian Beach Handball Championship.
Yeah, 2 years without playing, yeah.
2 years without playing, like an international match. But they've done a shed load of work in New Zealand since then. They've put a lot of effort into having regular training camps, having like North against South, stuff like that, and building a squad. And so it's not the same as international competition, but they have this. They have the World Games later in the year as well. So, and I have a feeling, coming up against Portugal, then Brazil and Qatar tomorrow, that's going to put them in a very good position for the consolation matches later in the championship. So as long as everyone stays healthy, I have a feeling they'll pick up a victory or 2 over the course of the week, and I hope they do as well.
That would be awesome.
But Portugal then, losing to Qatar, which was a bit of a shock to me.
No, we could have won the 2 sets. It's I think we got too nervous, especially in the first set. We got too nervous, and we kind of like recovered well. But there's these moments in beach handball, especially in the last 3 minutes of the first of the set, of course, is that if you manage to grow into your opponent, like if you manage to come from a trailing position to getting to equal to him, you have the upper hand against him. Despite him having shoot the timeout or not, you have the advantage. But you need to remain calm and not be, very eager to go for to overcome, to overlap your opponent. And what happened was that they become very eager and they start doing a lot of mistakes and not scoring. And when you don't score, your defense you cannot think that your defense is gonna save everything, because it's not gonna happen. And that's what happened. Qatar was very clinical, very, very cold in their position, and they took that first set very, very well. On the second one, we were winning by 10 at a given time, like 11-15, like 15-4. We did allow them to come, to regain the position. And that's the thing. They had the momentum. They didn't overlap us, but they give like a draw. We had a draw and went to golden goal. We got the ball, and we score with a specialist, winning the second set. So you can see that that momentum. Qatar had enough experience, because their players are kind of like 20-something, 30s, with a lot of games in their legs against different tough teams, especially in the championship that is the Asian with the Middle East countries against each other, and they're really tough, especially when it comes to physicality. So they know how to manage these timings, and they have experience from different competitions for the World Games and different World Championships. Yeah. In the shootout, well, it's a lottery. We missed one shootout, and they scored one goal, and that's it. 9-8.
That's all it takes.
Yeah, that's all it takes.
That's just one. And just a shout out to Amir Noureddin Denguir, who scored 14 from 14 shots in that match, 27 points. I think he's a name I've come across. I think he's played in France indoors and for the Qatar national team as well. So a player that is one to look out for at this championship. But yeah, so it's a must-win game, I guess, tomorrow against Brazil in terms of the long road to the quarterfinals. But I'm really looking forward to that one as well. So a lot of big games already tomorrow, which is nice to see for the World Championship. I think we can wrap it up for there. Is there any other teams you want to give a shout out before we go to?
I'm gonna give a shout out to Australian women, because there's our Toots there, and she's been amazing with the Australian team. And I hope they get that win that they deserve, and hopefully they go through. All my ladies from the German team, me and Chris, we had you in our show and we loved it. So we kind of have this feeling for you girls, and we know you can do it. So go for it. And of course, my Portuguese, and my Spaniards. Although I said in the Twitch show that the Portuguese don't support the Spain teams. It's not true. We actually like them. Sometimes it's impossible for us.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Beach Handball, Marcio Menino, thank you very much. Maybe we'll do it again on Sunday after the final.
Sure.
Let's do it. Enjoy the rest of the championship. Yeah, I hope you fully recover at some point from Cologne.
Yeah, tomorrow I'll be better.
Good stuff. All right. Take care, Matt.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.